We had a quick overlook at what this chapter contains, and we'll directly start with the content as such. Human reproduction, and again, most of these things might be just a piece of revision for all of you. But yeah, we will go over it because these terms will be utilized for the later part of the chapter. So humans, they are sexually reproducing and they are viviparous. uh, Akshay, can you tell me what is viviparous?
They give birth to live young.
Right, and what was the other type?
Oviparous.
Okay.
And then oviviviparous.
Yeah, correct. So that means you remember all of these terms. So I need not explain what viviparous is. So internal fertilization happens in case of human, and the internal development that's also happens. So now again, different species or different organisms, they might have external fertilization and external development. External development is a little rare phenomena because you can imagine that the nourishment that is required for the growth of embryo, where will it be achieved from? So in those cases that external development becomes tricky, but otherwise in majority of these cases it is internal fertilization and the internal development of the embryo. So internal fertilization into a zygote of the male and female gamete, and the internal development of the embryo from the zygote. Now, in general, the human reproduction involves sequence of events, right? There are several steps. First one, that is gametogenesis, that is the formation of the haploid gametes by meiosis. Again, uh, meiosis happens before the gametes are being formed, which are like a diploid cell giving rise to the haploid sex cells or haploid gametes, because they have only one single set of chromosomes. So that is gametogenesis, the formation of the gametes. Insemination, that is the again it's a part of the sexual intercourse, that is the deposition of the sperm into the female genital tract. Again, there is nothing more to explain there. Insemination is the like biological terminology, that is the deposition of the sperm into the female reproductive part or the female genital tract. Then the third sequence or the third event that happens in a sequence, that is fertilization. Again, fertilization is same like what we had seen in case of flowering plants, that is the fusion of the male and female gamete. Again, both of these gametes, they are haploid and they will form a diploid zygote, that is both the set of the chromosomes, they will be restored from zygote onwards, that is even in the embryo stage and then in the adult stage and so on. So that is fertilization. Fourth event that happens in the human reproduction, that is cleavage. Now cleavage is a specific repeated mitotic divisions. Mitosis, again, because the number of chromosomes they are retained, that is the diploid throughout, and the parent cell and the daughter cell, they are like an equational division. That's what is mitotic division, to form the morula and then blastocyst. Again, morula and blastocyst, these are the two stages uh, in like from the zygote to the infant stage of the baby. We will have a look at this, what exactly morula means, what exactly blastula or blastocyte means. So that we will take as and when it comes. But as of now, cleavage means that whatever zygote was formed, it will break, not break, but it will divide itself via mitotic process, and it will form two cells, then four cells, and so on. So that is a cleavage part. Implantation, after like a certain mass of the cells is formed after the cleavage or after the mitotic division, there is this attachment of blastocyst to the uterine wall, and that is what is implantation. So that blastocyst is getting implanted onto the uterus walls, or you can also call it uterine walls. Again, I hope you will make yourself very familiar with these three terms: ureter, uterus, and urethra. You must know which one to use when. Yeah. So just look at the spellings and also the pronunciation. So it's uterus, ureter, and urethra. These are the three similar in terms of writing to some extent, but they are drastically different in terms of function. So implantation happens in the uterine in the uterus on its walls of the blastocyst. Then gestation is the period of development of the complete baby. That is intrauterine period. That means intrauterine is within the uterus, whatever is the time period of the fetus. Again, fetus refers to the growing embryo, during which the embryo is completely developed to the baby stage or the infant stage until baby is formed. So that is a gestation period. In short, what we can call it as a period of pregnancy. That is 9 months. What we call is actually the period of pregnancy or the gestation period. And again, we might have a look at the gestation periods of different species just to have an idea of how the gestation happens in those species. And the last sequence of event, that is parturition, uh, that is the separation of the baby from the uterine wall and the delivery. That is at the end, when you have to like remove the placenta and then take out the baby. Not take out, if it is not a natural delivery, then you can say take out, but the delivery of the baby and the separation of the baby from the uterus, that is parturition process. So these are the different events. We will see all of these in detail in later part. So this was just to give you a brief idea of how does the human reproduction looks like in a stepwise manner. Now, again, most of these things you are very familiar with respect to secondary sexual characteristics, or what is also called as external sexual characteristics. So apart from like having the male reproductive organs or female reproductive organs, we do have, as a human being, we do have certain sexual characteristics, and this is what will be explained in this part. So, in unisexual, the males and females, they are visibly different from each other, right? Visibly different. I like. I'm sure that you understand what does this mean. Like females, they do have breast, or males, they do have, let's say, after an sexual maturity or after puberty. Males, they do get facial hairs. Yeah? So that is the visibly different characteristics from each other in the physical appearance. So physically we look different. Again, the external genitals, uh, uh, I'm not sure if there is any species which has internal genitals, but one thing I know for sure is, like in some of the animals, like for example elephants, or I guess or I just know of elephants as of now. I guess it's there somewhere in the slides further. They have testes inside the abdominal cavity. It's not outside the body. So that is what is internal or external genitals. Even the penis in case of males, that is outside the body. So that is the external genitals. And the accessory sexual characteristics, again whatever is required for the sexual behavior, that is the accessory. They are helpful in that sexual behavior. They, and this particular phenomena is called as sexual dimorphism. That means existence of separate sexes in the separate bodies, right? There are some organisms, for example, earthworm, they are not sexually dimorphic. They can have male and female body in the same organism, right? But in case of human, male has a different structure of the body, and the female has a different structure of body. So that's what is sexually dimorphic. And you must be aware of this term, because we will be using this term as and when it comes to different organisms. We can say that it is sexually dimorphic or non dimorphic. That way, that is just morphism. It morphology, that is what is morphism. That is where this morphism coming from. That is the external, what you say, the characteristics or the physical characteristic. That is what is morphology. And diamonds too. So that is two different types of external appearances, and that's what is sexual dimorphism. The accessory or the secondary sexual characters, they appear during the puberty due to the actions of the sex hormones secreted by the anterior pituitary gland and by the gonads. Now again, like very much, you people are very much aware of the what puberty means. It's the sexual maturity. Yeah. And like this happens, the puberty happens due to the actions of the sex hormones. Now sex hormones, again, testosterone, estrogen or progesterone, or androgen in common. So these are the sex hormones secreted in males as well as the females, and their secretion is in turn guided by the anterior pituitary gland. So in the class 10 you had studied about, or last year also we had, no, we did not actually, but surely in class 10 you had studied about this chapter, like the endocrine glands, where the anterior pituitary glands secrete certain hormones, which in turn goes and act on the gonad cells, and then these gonads or the sexual organs, they will secrete the certain hormone. Again, like I had mentioned earlier, yesterday, we will be looking at these different sex hormones and their effects and where they are secreted, how they affect, and so on. All of these characteristics. Uh, I wanted to say something here, but I forgot now. Okay, anyway. So in humans, it includes like low and high pitch of sound, the external reproductive organs, that is genitals, and the pattern of the hair growth on the body. These are just few examples. Again, in case of females, again, these are very much, we are very much aware, but just to go over it quickly. Females, they will attain puberty usually between 10 to 12 years of the age, and they will show physical or the bodily changes in terms of development of the delicately curved body. So usually this is with respect to the shortening of the, not shortening as such, but the growth of the shoulder and the hip region, that happens in a typical manner, like it like in contrary to the man or the male body. Growth of the axillary and pubic hair, again, this is a very common to have the hair at the armpit and the in the pubic region. Enlargement of the breast, again, that is because of the growth of the mammary glands and the breast cells. Sweetening of the voice, again, their voice turns, like the female's voice turn a little sweeter in terms of the pitch. Then the initiation of the menstrual cycle, that is what is called as menarche. Now this is specifically the actually the indication of the start of the actual puberty, right? The other characteristics may grow simultaneously over the time, but as and when the first menstruation happen, that is where the actual sexual maturity has been attained by the female body, and usually that age is 10 to 12 years. In case of males, again, males, they have relatively like they attain the puberty at a little later stage always than a female. Now again, there will be exceptions, but if you take the average population, males will attain puberty later than the females. That just a common trait, and it has to do something with respect to the developmental stages of the individuals. So again, this includes appearance of facial hair, growth of axillary and pubic hair, broadening of the chest and shoulder, and this is what I meant in the earlier case. The curvature of the female body is different than the male body, because the arrangement of the chest like literally expands a bit in terms of the, because the clavicle and the shoulder pelvic, not pelvic girdle, pectoral girdle, they have a different set of arrangement in terms of bones. Just they increase the little gap so that the broadening of the shoulder and that particular characteristic develops. Appearance of the hair on the chest, arms and the legs, development of the muscular body. So muscle development does happen in female also, but that is drastically prominent in case of males. Deepening of the voice, again there is a pitch change, and the enlargement of the genitalia. This specifically is with respect to the development of the penis and the testis in terms of size. So these are the different external sexual characteristics in case of males. Now there is also a common trend with respect to the male and the female sexual maturity that has been observed from last 20 to 30 years. Earlier, the sexual maturity within the females was attained somewhere around 14, 13 or 14 years of age. So when the girls used to go to 8th or 9th standard, that's when they used to attain the sexual maturity. And same goes with the boys. Boys used to attain the sexual maturity around 9th or 10th standard, that is after 14th or 15th years of their age. But these years or the year of attaining the sexual maturity or puberty has been reducing over the time, and these are the current values what we see. Like if you want to know more, you can always google it out on this particular part, but there is a trend that the sexual maturity is coming earlier over the time, and this is happening with both males as well as the female species. uh, yeah, so that is with respect to the external sexual characteristics. Do you have any questions until here? Okay, so if there are no questions, then we can move forward. Now, going actually into this topic of human reproductive organs, we'll be looking at separately male and female reproductive organs. So, just to give a brief in common, both female and male reproductive organs, they comprise of the primary sex organs, secondary or also called as accessory sex organs, and then ducts, that is a tube-like structure, and the genitalia. Uh, uh, so again, genitalia can form the primary sex organs, but just here it is differentiated in terms of like, because we have internal uh, like reproductive structures. Like for example, in case of uh, uh, males, we do have epididymis type of structure which is around the testis, and also the common duct or common passage in the urethra for the urine and what you say, the semen secretion or insemination process. So that way the genitalia can be separated from the primary sex organ, but they are ideally the main primary sex organ itself. So there is nothing different in that. And the ducts, they again can form the main reproductive structures, but like not necessarily they always have to be separate in terms of mention, but they are just these tube like structure. Primary sex organs, these are also called as gonads. Again, gonad is a biological term that we use. They give rise to the sex cells or what is called as gametes, and secrete hormones. So again, we know in case of male that there is a testis, and in case of female there is a ovary. So the growth of the gonads, the maintenance of the growth, or whatever differentiation of the cells that happens within the gonads, especially with respect to the secretion or generation of the sex cells or gametes and their function, these are all regulated by the gonadotropins. Gonadotropins, as in, these are the hormones which are actually secreted by the anterior pituitary gland, and they will act on the gonads, that is either a testis or an ovary, and from there they will secrete further other hormones, and the functions or the growth is regulated. FSH, I assume you are aware, it is follicle stimulating hormone. Follicle refers to the ovule. So it is like hormone which triggers the secretion or liberation of the ovule from the ovary. So it is follicle stimulating hormone. And LH, that is luteinizing hormone. So luteinizing hormone is one of the important hormones in terms of maintenance of the menstrual cycle, and also during the pregnancy times. So these are the two hormones. In males, these gonads, they are called as testes. Again, the singular and plural, they differs. When we say testes, that is a singular. Testes, again, can be pronounced in a little similar way. That is just the like two of them, or the plural form, which produces the sperm, or also called as spermatozoa. They are the same. And a male hormone, which is testosterone. Now, testosterone helps in the development of and the maintenance of the secondary sexual characteristics in the male. And again, that is very well known. In females, gonads are ovaries which produce the female gametes, or also called as eggs or ova, and the female hormones, that is estrogens. These hormones, they help. Now there are several types of estrogen, like estradiol and so on, estradiol, estradiol, and these are just the different forms of estrogens which are present in your body. So these hormones, they help in the development and the maintenance of the sexual characteristics, and the maintenance of the menstruation in the females. That is just the brief idea. Again, like looking at the secondary sex organs, these organs which assist in reproduction but neither produce gametes nor secrete any sex hormones. So that is the most important definition of the secondary or accessory sex organs. They are not taking part in reproduction process as such, but they help uh, that reproduction process to happen. This includes your prostate gland, seminal vesicle, epididymis, Cowper's gland, vasa differentia, urethra, and penis in case of male, while in case of female, again we will see where these organs are: fallopian tube, uterus, vagina, vulva, Bartholin gland, and the mammary glands in female. So these are the different structures which are considered as accessory or secondary sex organs. Uh, then again, this is the table which is kind of differentiating between what is primary and secondary sex organs. You can just go over it. It is nothing to be discussed as such in the class, so you can have a look at it later. It's a very simple one. Moving forward, so coming back to the male reproductive system part, like if you have any questions from the previous part, you can ask. Otherwise we will continue with this part. Does anyone have any question? Okay, so again, the basics that you are aware of. So the male reproductive system, it's located in the pelvic region. The primary reproductive organs, they are the pair of uh, testes, and their scrotal sacs. Scrotal is referring to the scrotum part, which is the pouch-like structure, and so these are the primary reproductive organs. I must mention that we have a common notion that penis is the reproductive organ, but it is no, sorry, it is the primary reproductive organ. That is the notion, but it is just an accessory organ that we must like make sure that we know of this fact. The reason being, it does not take part in the reproduction process as such. It just helps in the insemination process through the sexual intercourse. So just be aware of that part. So the reproductive organ is only testis and the scrotal sacs. But again, scrotal sacs can be an accessory organ because they need to hold the testis. But as such, this whole structure is called as reproductive organ. Accessory ducts, there are different accessory ducts in males, that is rete testis, vasa efferentia. We will look at these when we look at the testis structure. Epididymis and vasa differentia. Again, these two terms, vasa efferentia and vasa differentia, these are the two different structures. So again, do not get confused because it's just the like a missing D in one of the term. Then accessory sex organs, seminal vesicles, Cowper's gland, prostate gland, urethra, and penis. And this is what I mentioned earlier. So these are the three different like subtypes in the reproductive system of a male body: primary, the accessory ducts, and the accessory sex organs. Accessory ducts, you can simply call them ducts because they just do the function of like a tube, like carrying something from here to there. So that's what accessory ducts are. Now scrotum, or also called as scrotal sac, that is the pouch like loose fold of skin arising from the lower abdominal wall, and it is hanging between the legs. Again, this physical description you are very much aware of. So one thing I must mention, though it is a loose fold of skin, it is not a delicate type of skin. It is a very comparatively good, like in general we have a delicate skin somewhere around, like let's say hand or palm, because paper cut is easier in such places, but the skin at the scrotum is not that delicate compared to the rest of the body. So it is like more even though it is loose fold of skin, it is relatively a much more sturdier type of skin at the scrotum. Its dermis consists of a continuous layer of smooth muscles fibers, which are called as dartos tunic. Now, uh, actually, dermis, I assume you are aware of what is dermis, epidermis, then serosa, and so on. These are the different layers of the skin. So within specifically the dermis region of the skin of the scrotum, there are the smooth muscle fibers, and we will see later why they are required to have a smooth muscle fiber there. That these are specifically called as dartos tunic. The muscular partition between the two testes, or at the center of the scrotum, that is called as septum scroti. Again, these are kind of Latin words. Septum is the separation and the scroti refers to the scrotum part. So which divides the scrotum internally into right and left scrotal sacs. So literally there is a kind of muscular wall in between two testes. So and it's a relatively thinner. It's not like a thick one, even though it is muscular also. So that is a thin layer of muscle cells, which is called as septum scroti, separating right and left scrotal sacs and also the testis ultimately. The a scar like raphe marks the position of the septum externally. Now raphe is that ridge-like structure at the center of the scrotum. I guess I can show you here. No, it's not there. But okay, I guess I will, but yeah, you can just imagine there is in between the two testes, like obviously the males would know it, but raphe is a kind of external ridge like structure at the center over the testis, that is looks like a star. It's not life, it is like actually. So that is the which marks the position of the septum, or which marks the position of this septum scroti from the external side. So that is raphe. The function, there is no function of raphe as such. It is actually considered to be one of the what you say, during the sexual intercourse. This is considered as one of the excitatory point for the males as well as the females, like uh, just for females to look at it and for males to get aroused. So these are the functions. Otherwise, as such, physiologically it has no function at all. Testis develops in the abdominal cavity. Now, abdominal cavity does not literally mean within the abdomen, but it is a part of that region during the 7th month of the development. So, approximately 26 to 28th month, that is when these testes they develop from the like whatever cells they are from the neural plate which is forming during the embryonal stage. These testes they start forming and they descend permanently into their respective scrotal sacs. So obviously these scrotal sacs they have already been formed earlier, and the testis whichever is formed within the abdominal region, they will descend into the scrotum part through the inguinal canals. Inguinal canals, these are the again developmental structures. So during the developmental stages, after a certain months of gestation, these inguinal canals they are formed. These are just like a tube-like structure below the abdominal region for these testes to descend into the scrotal sacs. So that is the developmental stage of the testis. In case again with specifically with respect to scrotum, it acts as a thermoregulator. Now thermoregulator means one which maintains the temperature, and the temperature is maintained 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius lower than the body temperature. So let's say if the body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius or 98.5 degree Fahrenheit, so it would be somewhere around 35 degrees Celsius or so. That's where the temperature of the scrotum or the testis is maintained at. And this is suitable for the maturation of the sperm. Again, like this is a very general trend in terms of any cells, whether it's a somatic cells or whether it's a gamete cells. In any of these cases, if the temperature is reduced a little bit, the stability of the cells and also the kind of mutation that happens within the cells, they are taken care of. So because the sperms, they are one of the most important like the part in the process of reproduction. They we cannot afford to have a mutation in this sperm. So just to avoid that part, the temperature of the testis is kept a little below than the body temperature, and this is specifically adapted to the process of maturation of the sperm and maintaining them in the healthier condition. Thus, and that is why the scrotum will protect the sperm and the spermatogenic tissue, that is from where the sperms are getting produced, from relatively high body temperature. So that is what is the function of the scrotum. So when the external temperature falls, so now how does it maintain exactly? So when the external temperature falls, that is the surrounding temperature is like cold, then the scrotum will shrink and it will bring the testis closer to the body for warmth. And when the external temperature is higher, or when it is like risen a bit, then the scrotum will become flaccid to enable the heat loss. So like that is when the testis as such sometimes go closer to the body, or the scrotal sac lifts the testis up or down, becoming flaccid or becoming like shrunk. So that depends on what is the temperature outside and what is the body temperature. So these are just to maintain the temperature for the maturation of the sperm or protection of the sperm. Now, failure of the testis to descend into the scrotum. That means remaining, like the testis will remain in the abdominal cavity itself and not going down into the scrotum, causes sterility. Because again, the sperm formation and the maturation does not occur at the abdominal temperature. So at the a little higher temperature, the sperm formation and the maturation does not occur. Now, how does it happen? Because these cells within the testis, they have certain receptors which are called as thermoreceptor, and they detect the temperature. Then they give signal to the cell, okay, now you are ready to go for the sperm formation, or that sperm formation cannot happen at this temperature, either ways. So that is happening because of the thermoregulator receptors present on the these testis cells. To reduce the spontaneous rate of germ cell mutation, this scrotum is present outside, and that is what I mentioned earlier. So, because the thermoregulation is one of the important function of the scrotal sacs, this will reduce the spontaneous rate of the mutation in the sperms. And again, if the temperature increases, even if it is like 1 degree increase in temperature, the chances of having the mutations is higher. So that is when we say in the like summer, when the temperature is little higher, the chances of getting mutations is also higher because the UV content there is higher, right? So there are quite a few like statements related to this. Again, I have attached a particular reference which talks specifically about this mutation in the germ cells and how it is affected by the temperature. It's a very nice article. If you want, you can read it out. So that is all about the scrotum part. Any questions here? Okay, so I assume there are no questions here. Again, we will look at the testis structure. Uh, so, the main primary reproductive organ uh, in the testis, which is also called, rarely it is called as spermaries, but majorly people always refer to it as testis. This spermaries is a very ancient name, I must say. So, primary male sex organs, it is soft, smooth, light brownish to pinkish, oval bodies. Internally, they are light brownish or pinkish, oval bodies, and it is not dependent on the skin color. Rather, skin color is of the scrotum and not of the testes. So, internally, they will be light brownish to pinkish, oval bodies, about 4 to 5 centimeter in length, 2 to 3 centimeter in width, and 2 to 2.5 centimeter thick. An individual testis will weigh around 10 to 12 grams. So they are like not that like heavy as well as such. Uh, these like testes, they are extra abdominal. Like I had mentioned, they are hanging out in the abdominal cavity between the legs, and that's why they are called extra-abdominal, suspended in the scrotal sac by the spermatic cords. Now these cords are a tendon-like tissue or a muscle fiber-like tissue which is holding the testis as such in the scrotal sac. So they are not just like left hanging; they are connected with some tissue uh, to the internal parts of the body. The left testis is generally located 1 centimeter, not necessarily 1 centimeter, but it is surely located a little lower in the scrotal sac than the right testis. Again, this has to do something with the developmental phenomena, because the right testis develop first and then it occupies a certain space, and then left testis, when it has to grow, it's not that right testis develops completely and then the left develops, but even if they are developing simultaneously, right one develops first slowly as the left one starts developing, and it occupies a certain space, and that is why left testis is relatively lower than the right one. The transcend of testis, that is coming down from the abdominal cavity, only in breeding season. This is where I was talking about the intra-abdominal testis and so on. So transcend of testis that happens only in breeding season. For example, in bats. So bats, they don't have externally visible testis structure. They are present within the abdominal cavity, and they transcend only when the bats, they have to they have to breed with each other, while the elephant and whale has it permanently intra-abdominal. They will never come out. Like humans, they have always out. Bats, they will come out as and when required during the sexual intercourse or breeding times. And the elephant and whale like species, they will have permanently intra-abdominal, and they have a connecting tube from the testis to the urethra, which will obviously do the process of insemination. So there are different such structures present in different organisms.
So,
Yes.
since elephants and whales have it intra-abdominal, is it somehow related to their size, like, and weight? Because both of them are big, right?
Yeah, but then I wouldn't go by that like statement, because then that with bull or rhinos and all of these are also quite giant animals, not as giant as elephant and whales, but they are relatively pretty huge, and their testes, I'm sure you would have observed it, uh, they are like hanging outside. So I don't know what is exactly the correlation. One probability could be that these are elephant and whale. They are relatively closer to humans in terms of evolution compared to the other species. That is what I feel, one reason. Again, but I'm not sure of that fact. But that could be the possible reason why they are like different in different species. Okay, so that is the just the external feature of the testis. Okay, now we have to go in details now. Uh, I guess we won't finish this particular topic if we start now. So I would prefer to stop here, and then in the next like class we will start with the microscopic anatomy of the testes. But what you can do in the meanwhile is you can have a look at this diagram and just go over it on your own. Just have a look what structure is where, and that way it will be easier for us to navigate in the next class.